Hi, and very good morning to you. It's Gene from maverickstar Observatory. Guys, we've got a lot to get through. As you know, it is one of the busiest days here at the observatory. We've already updated the website with the latest TriMag and recent magnetosphere data. So it's all there if you want to go over to poleshiftnews.com, have a look at that. And obviously there's lots of other anomalies that we cover on that website, so you might find it interesting to go and have a little peek at just what is available on that website for you. But I wanted to start today with, first of all, saying big thanks to a few people over the weekend that pledged a little bit of support for our observatory. But I've got to say this, it isn't enough, guys. It is good that we are getting some support, but it isn't good enough. You know, a couple of days ago we had a video do remarkably well, but on the back of that, still less than 10 people came forward with some support for our observatory. And this is mainly to do with one topic that should be on the forefront of everyone's mind at the moment, because this is one of the rarest events that humanity has ever experienced before. And at least if, okay, according to what is said about how long we're supposed to be on this earth, even if we have been on this earth longer than that as a species of intelligent people, we certainly have no record of the last completed magnetic reversal. As you guys know, it was 780,000 years before the last magnetic completed reversal. What is the point of looking at what we're looking at today? This story was broke this morning on Sky News by Ashad Zahid, I believe, if I've not butchered her name completely like I normally do. But she was talking about women diagnosed with cervical cell changes following smear tests, and obviously women that have this have feelings of shame, isolation, anxiety. Says this charity that has been monitoring this, but the point is that 220,000 women are diagnosed with abnormal cell changes every year. Put that into context, guys. 60 million to 65 million people here in the UK. We're talking about women alone that have been diagnosed with abnormal cell changes. 220,000 in 1 year. This is just affecting women, and it's just one particular type of cancer in a particular area of the body, the cervix, which has obviously boomed. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because if you've been following what we talk about on here, we talk about two adverse effects of extra cosmic radiation. One is an increase in cancer rates, and here we see in the UK alone 220,000 women diagnosed with abnormal cell changes. Let's put that into perspective. That is cancerous cells. And this is just one small area. The other area that we haven't started looking into, which we're going to, is how the increase in cardiac failure has increased over the years recently. And I'll tell you why. Because if we are getting more cosmic rays in our upper atmosphere as a result of two things primarily: first, the grand solar minimum, shrinking the heliosphere, and secondly, our Earth going into a magnetic reversal which weakens the magnetosphere. Both these combined together compound the effects of increased cosmic rays. Now, I can imagine that people that deal with cancers, these specialists that deal with these and consultants that deal with cancers, are probably not aware that the causes could be coming from something else, which is increasing the rates of these events every year in people. And they may not know that that is probably closely related to the fact that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and cosmic rays are one of the things that causes an increase in cancers. It also causes cardiac arrhythmic failure, and we're going to start to see more and more of this as we get closer to that point of the reversal. Now, guys, we are probably only 14 months away. I would predict we're going to start seeing some changes before that in any case, because that is the critical point 40 degree is. But as we get closer to that point, in 14 months time, March next year, the magnetosphere could see significant weakening. That means not just are we going to see the climatic changes of what is about to occur on this planet, because if anything to go by the last 30 years, when we started to see an increase in the rate at which the magnetic pole migrated over shortest periods of time, then we should also not just see climatic changes increase as the pole migrates and the magnetosphere gets worse, we will also see an increase in cancers across the range, not just cervical cancers, but cancers across the range, and not just with women alone. So like I was saying, although this chart, North Pole migration V's miles, needs a little bit of an update, I can tell you now we have since the 1990s covered over 1,200 miles of migration. That is over double the amount we covered from 1900 to 1990, where it only migrated 500 miles over the Northern Hemisphere. So there was an acceleration that started in 1990 to 2018 and is still accelerating. As we've found in the last 5 months, the magnetic North Pole is migrating now around 5 miles or thereabouts every month. A little bit later on in the video we're going to pinpoint it for you, so if you're following it on your own Google Earth, you can put a pin in there and we'll give you the longitude and latitude of where you need to put that pin in, so you can track it yourselves. But what this tells us is that if we are to look at the climate since 1990 to the present day, we'll know anyhow just by what we've seen take place over those last 50 years or so, what and how the climate has been changing on our planet. Largely, we are seeing more floods. We are seeing more sub-zero temperatures break records of over 100 years. We're seeing forest fire seasons start earlier because of the droughts in some other parts. But one thing we are seeing at this same pace, not just the multitude of climatic changes that we've just mentioned, but we are also seeing land go offline. We're hearing of businesses go bump, and not just because of the fact that most of our planet now is slowly reducing its size of arable cropping land that we use, but we also have at this point in time more people than ever to feed. And you had a pandemic in the midst of all this, and you have further job losses, more poverty, and more land going offline, and our systems just seem to be breaking down one by one. I'll tell you one thing you'll notice this year: an increase already in the food prices, in the energy prices. You'll probably notice at the pump the petrol prices and diesel prices go up, and you'll notice also that wages are not meeting these inflations. But you know what, guys, over here in the West we're a little bit more safer than and not so exposed to all these things as what some people are in the East and the Far East. And I just want to briefly just bring to your attention one big catastrophe which has just started to pop up in mainstream media. You might or may have already heard of what's going on right now in Afghanistan. Now, as you guys know, I talk about our gauntlet and the fact that we've hit a couple of those obstacles on that gauntlet here in the West that has caused significant problems for ourselves. So no one is immune from this, but in poorer parts of this world, people have their own gauntlets. And it shouldn't be a fact that we should point our finger at anyone and say, well, it's this fault and it's that fault. The fact is that it is happening. And this starving child in this image that we're looking at here has, by no means of its own fault, found itself in one of the worst and most horrific situations anyone could ever be born into this world in. And yet we are seeing this take place now. Millions and millions of people in Afghanistan are facing starvation. It is real, it is happening, and the rest of the Western world are pretty much not doing much at all about it. Now, I'm not a Russian or a Chinese sympathiser, but I have to say I do agree with what they have asked the International Monetary Fund and other Western countries that have imposed sanctions on Afghanistan to lift them and allow them access to the £9 billion worth of funds that has been seized by the West and the International Monetary Fund, so that they can deal with this crisis which is unfolding. And it needs to happen right now, because by the day, people in increasing numbers are going to start dying if we don't do something about it. I have seen a lot worse images than this, and I haven't seen scenes like that since back in the 80s, like we saw with the people in Ethiopia starving. You know, this is a crisis that needs to get resolved, and the West can do something about it. But like I say, guys, you know, it isn't just the fact that they are starving because of the political pressures in that country right now, with Afghanistan's and the Taliban taking over and the United States moving. It is also the fact that the climatic changes are catching up with these people, and it is making it difficult for them to grow their own crops to support themselves, as they have been accustomed to before. So, you know, we are going to see a lot more of these countries fall before ourselves in more worse situations than ourselves, as we move closer to possibly, you know, only months away, 14 months away, where we reach a critical point of 40 degrees and we start to see a rapid decay of the magnetosphere on our Earth. You might be sitting there in your armchair thinking, this isn't going to happen. Well, I can tell you now, there isn't an organisation in this world with any respect that will say otherwise. Whether or not, you know, we start to see things rapidly pick up on that 40 degrees mark is another thing. But I will tell you this, we are in the midst of a magnetic pole reversal on this planet, and the magnetosphere is already weakened to about 15 to 20% as we sit here and you guys watch this video. It is, I guarantee you, and I kid you not, already happening, and it is possible that it could get a lot worse in the next 14 months. Guys, let's have a look at where the magnetic North Pole is right now on Google Earth. So here we are on Google Earth, and the latest position of the magnetic North Pole on the 17th of the 1st 2022, the first reading of the year, guys, is at this latitude 82 degrees 41 hours 6 minutes 98 seconds north. The longitude is 119 by 44 hours 30 minutes 64 seconds east. And that means, as you will see, we have covered in the last month 5.25 miles. So it's still maintaining its current speed. And we've seen this now in concession for the last 6 months, this maintaining this 5 or thereabouts miles every month, as opposed to 4 miles previous to those 6 months ago. So there has been a slight uptick in the speed as we progress that little bit more towards the 40 degree mark, which is at 14 months away. This time next year in March we will arrive at that point if we maintain this current speed. I anticipate, like I guess a few of you already have said in the comment sections on previous videos, that we will see another increase in speed at some point between now and March next year. This is how close we are, guys. And there is so many uncertainties with what we are looking at. I just want to back up the resolution of what we're looking at over the northern hemisphere right now, so you can see what has happened and how close we are to that 40-degree mark, and we can see it coming into the screen right now. You can see it is still maintaining its current position in that corridor, heading towards Russia, just below the Arctic Circle. I just wanted to zoom right out so you could see all the pins going back to the 1900s, 120 years ago, so you can see how many miles the magnetic North Pole has migrated in 120 years. As you can see, it is 1,883 miles in total to this present day. Our world is changing, and this really is happening. And you know, when I see volcanoes erupt like we have done over the last few days in Tonga, I know how devastating it is. I know people have already lost lives, but I just want to say this: there is another flip side to this coin. The fact that volcanoes are still in eruption on our planet, and there is around about 28 on this day around the world in eruption, it is a healthy sign for our core of our Earth, because as I've mentioned before, the first things we saw happen on Mars before it lost its magnetosphere was possibly a solidification of its core, which led to the stall of the magneto in the core that generated the magnetosphere. And as we know, the story from there went something like this: it lost its magnetosphere, it lost its upper atmospheric gases, and then it lost the water on its surface. And when I see volcanoes erupting on this Earth, it ensures me of one thing, is that the core still is not solidified, and therefore a magneto can still work. So as devastating as volcanoes are, they are also an indication of something a little bit more optimistic. But that doesn't mean what we will be facing in the coming years on this planet will give us that reassurance that we're all going to be okay, because we simply do not know the answers to that. What I will say is this can very easily turn very, very bad for us. And it could be why we see some of the ancient civilizations actually taking themselves down into deep caverns and caves, and not just themselves, but their cattle along with them, and possibly their food supplies, for at least a period of time. Now, maybe during one of the excursions that has occurred in the time that we've been on this planet, you know, human beings have had to do that to avoid, you know, some of the harshest cosmic ray showers ever witnessed on this planet. That might be why people show videos on YouTube and other social media sites like YouTube, underground cities that are being built and constructed at this minute that we talk. And they are said to be in the size where they are already the size of cities in some cases, and can house many thousands of people. I don't think that we'll be lucky enough to have one of those lottery tickets that gives us continuity in the next few years. We are facing some very, very testing times ahead. Let's just say that for the least. They are going to be testing times. We're not just going through this process of a magnetic reversal during a grand solar minimum. We are at a point in time where the climate is shutting down a lot of the productive agricultural land around our world. And we are going to see the weakest nations hit hardest first, as we already have been seeing for the last 10-20 years to this point in time. We are going to see a lot worse than what we've already seen, and even ourselves are going to be caught up directly in some of these events that are going to take place. I kid you not. So it is in your best interest to start your little insurance policy for yourselves and your loved ones right now, if you haven't already, because I would hate you to be one of these people after just witnessing a tornado destroy your house, or flash floods destroy your house, or even, as we are going to see down the road, cities, grids failing because of the Arctic climate moving in on those areas. I don't want you to say, I never thought this would ever happen to me, because if you've been following me long enough on this channel, you should already have some provisions put in place for you and your loved ones. Doesn't cost a lot of money, but you need to start now if you haven't already. Guys, this is one of the busiest days for us, I suppose, or one of the most important days of the month. It's the 17th of December, and you know, I always say this, you know, without the support for this observatory, we cannot deliver any of the data which we cover and monitor. And we are working on getting more equipment out into other countries like Russia, Brazil and South Africa to cover those all-important key areas. We can't do it without support from you guys. Can't do it at all. And you know, the level of support has dropped in the last 2 years because of the pandemic situation, and I do understand genuinely those people that can't afford to. But you know, the other day we had a video that had 10,000 views and less than 10 people come forward to support what we do. I think you'll agree that needs to improve, especially as we are so close to seeing some startling anomalies form on our planet. We could be just 14 months away from that. I'll say what I usually do. Guys, there's a link down there in the description. You can support us on there. You can become one of our patrons. We've only got 130 patrons. Can you believe that? There's a PayPal link down there in the description. You could help us out there. There's a link on the website which suffers the worst support. You know, this is your observatory, guys. This is what's giving you a heads up about what is coming. You know, I hope you choose to support it. Simple as that. Nothing else to say, but take care of your loved ones. As always, bye for now.